All right, well, good morning. I tell you, you have to work really hard to get the 7 a.m. time slot. So thank y'all for being here. But if you don't mind, we're going to open up with a quick word of prayer. Dwayne, you open us up?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let us pray. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we have, Lord, to gather together. We thank you for the freedom that you allow us to have. We pray, Heavenly Father, that we seek your wisdom, your guidance, Father, that we perform our duties in a manner that will be pleasing to you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. This is the Appropriations Subcommittee on General Government, just so everybody knows, and appreciate everybody being here. And we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to start in Department of Audits and Accounts. Will be page 4 on your track sheet. We've got one change there. They had a vacant position under 4.5.1, so we're going to take those funds there. They were exempt from the cuts, but we wanted them to basically be a team player, and they were willing to do that, so we did that there. Going on to the next change will be under 11.5.1, Georgia Government Transparency Campaign Finance. It's going to be on page 5, excuse me. There was a reduction there for some of the responsibilities and personnel services there. We wanted to add those funds back to make sure that everybody is following the rules and that nothing slips through the cracks under that agency. Going on to driver services, we have a change. It's on page 10. We have one transfer of $345,000 from license issuance over to Department of Administration. Just was a move that they requested. We have also added back in $210,000 for security purposes to 7 of their locations. They've requested some funds for security in the big budget as well, and we're just trying to help them on that and make them feel safe in those locations. Next change would be in the Office of Governor under the Governor's Emergency Fund. It'll be on page 12. If I'm going too fast, y'all just holler. It'll be 11 for you. Sorry about that. There was originally $10 million in the governor's recommendation. We're going to go with $7.5 million, and then we're going to relocate $2.5 million to the Department of Law, and they'll be talking about that. Next change, we'll keep flipping over, be under Department of Insurance. It's going to be on your page 13. We're going to capture some funds under 29.3.4 under the fire safety. There's some positions there that haven't been filled or are vacant, and we're going to pick up some funds there. Going on to DNR. We've got a few ads here. Keep all my stuff straight here. They're going to be at 34.8.3 under Parks and Rec. We're going to add some funds back in there, as well as 34.8.4 for operating expenses. They are money makers for our state, and they're a place that our people go to spend time with their families, and we don't want to have any any issues there. I skipped one back up under law enforcement as well, 34.7.3. We're going to add some funds back in there for law enforcement. They are here to protect us, and they need certain things, and we want them to have those certain things when we call them. We've also, they were one of our agencies that took a lot of cuts and have still not been restored back to their full operational capacity. So we're trying to keep them in play. The next one is on page 17, 34.10.3 and 34.10.4. Same here, we're adding in some funds specifically for their maintenance. We've spent a lot of money on our state parks over the last 8 to 10 years, and we want to make sure that that when our people go to those parks and spend time with their families, that they're safe and that they're clean and that they are in very good shape. Flip it on over to Department of Revenue. If you'll look under 42.8.6, we're going to pick up some funds there. This is under the private collection contracts that we have with the state. Obviously, we do pay commission for those, but we've got a lot of changes within the Department of Revenue, and we want to make sure that we do collect all the money that we can collect. They are very important to this entire process that we go through, so we want to make sure that they're not leaving any funds on the table. So we're adding in some funds there to allow them to continue to maintain those private collection contracts to bring in the revenue that we need to move forward. And then the last change we have under general government will be under the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission. The governor's recommendation had $200,000. We decided to add to that as well. We went in and tried to do an analysis of the actual fiscal note of that legislation that created that to get a more specific number so that they can get off the ground and get going. So you'll see an additional add there to bring that to 244,111. And those are all the changes. Do we have any questions from the committee? If there are no questions at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to pass.
Second. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. Thank you, committee. We're adjourned.
We'll call the Higher Ed Subcommittee on Appropriations to order, and I'll go over the amended budget. First of all, I want to thank our Patrick, our budget analyst, and all of the members for the work they put into this budget. Several hearings as we've sought to understand and get into the budget issues and the cuts so that we can make some responsible choices here, and I think that's what this amended budget reflects. So briefly, we're going to go into this. If you'll look in 41.1, also in 41.3, the Ag Experiment Station, the Cooperative Extension Service. These are sort of interrelated. Basically, what we've done here is we went in and found some ways to reduce the cut to go back to the original 4% cut that was in the governor's original budget instructions. We've done this in a manner both through positions and operating expenses, and we've done it in a way in which I think we are going to give flexibility to the folks who are in the cooperative extension and ag extension to do this in a very flexible and responsible manner. So we restored all of these cuts back to 4%. As many of you remember, these cuts came in above 4%, and what we're doing is restoring these back to the 4% that they had turned in to USG. Any questions on those, committee? Next, we'll go to the Forest Cooperative Extension. We've restored the funds travel there. Again, a lot of these issues are cuts were not requested originally by USG. 41.6 under forestry research. Again, we've reduced the cuts. These were actually more dramatic cuts. I think it was 14% cut, 15% cut, and we've reduced these cuts going back again to the original 4% that was in the original instructions. Next, Georgia Cyber Innovation Training Center. We've simply restored some of the lease funds there. It was associated with a non-faculty cut, and this revenue is generated by leases, and they will support and which are supplement the state funds. Next page. .1.12 is under the Marine Resources Extension Center. We've reduced those cuts. There was a vacant administrative specialist position that we found some funds in and corrected. We also restored the funds that were associated with a non-faculty position. Again, reducing the cuts back down to a more acceptable level. Medical College of Georgia, hospitals and clinics. If you'll look there on 41.13.1, what we've done is we've reduced these cuts back down to zero. This is actually funds for medical residents. As you know, that this House and this General Assembly have taken a big priority in health care, and a lot of that is our focus on making sure that we're turning out physicians, and we've restored these cuts so that we can continue to invest in our graduate students and our medical residents. Public libraries. If you'll see, we have restored on the 41.14.5 the material grants. As everyone knows, the material grants had been at 17.5 cents per capita. We finally last year had gotten the per capita amount back to the pre-recession amount of 35 cents per capita. We're disagreeing with the governor's recommendation, and we're going to hold the line at the 35 cents per capita amount. Public service special funding initiatives, If you'll look to 41.15.3, we've reduced the cuts in the Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center. These cuts, we're reducing school service days, in which we've got actually classroom learning. So we've reduced those cuts back down to 0. We've also, under 41.15.6, we found a little money with adjustment to the personnel services. We've got a personnel that needs to be hired, so we've reduced that cut to allow for an earlier hire date before the end of the year. Next one, Skidaway Institute of Oceanography. We've got some, again, some cuts that were made based on a non-faculty position. We've said no to that cut, restoring that money. 41.19.1, we've restored maintenance funds back to the original 4%. And we found a little money there and adjusted and a true up for a higher date for an application systems developer that actually came online in October. Next change, 41.23, payments to the Georgia Public Telecommunications Commission. If you'll look at 41.23.3, we've restored some funds in the cut there for operating expenses, going back to the 4% original plan. They have an issue over there. They've got 3 failed boilers, and this us putting money back into the budget will allow them to address one of the boilers and do the required maintenance and fix that issue. And if you'll go to the end, the only other change that we have is under the technical education. This is 46.6.3. Last year, if you'll remember, this committee added several aviation technician instructors. We were able to find some money there because of the hire dates. There were later hire date, so there was money available, and we simply found that money and put it back in here, or cut here. They did not use that money until a later start date for the employee hire. With that, that is all the changes to the budget for the amended budget. Are there any questions from the committee? Appropriate time.
Mr. Chairman, I move for due pass. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. And it passes. Thank you, committee, for your hard work on this.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a good weekend. They have saved, well, Chairman England has saved the best for last. I appreciate that, Chairman. Very nice of you. Public Safety Subcommittee on Appropriations has worked really hard over the last 3 to 4 weeks in going through both the amended, and we've been working on the full as well. So we'll start off with our revisions to the track sheet. We're going to start with Section 5, which is the Court of Appeals. If you'll look at the Court of Appeals at Section 5.1.1, 5.1.4, and 5.1.5, these are all adjustments that meet actual needs. In addition, if you look at 5.2, this is the Georgia Statewide Business Court. This will be the first year that we are budgeting for the business court. And you'll see here that at line 5.2.1 and 5.2.3, as well as 5.2.6, we have adjusted to meet actual needs. That amount will be 5.2.1 is $155,977, $400,000 at line 5.2.3, and at 5.2.6, $17,363. Going on to Judicial Council, we made adjustments at the Judicial Council at line 6.4.2. We are increasing the grants for the civil legal services by $100,000. The request was $375,000, but we've adjusted that downward for an add of $100,000. At line 6.4.3, we reduced the funds for vacancy savings. This was a savings position from several months. That is a reduction of $25,856. Judicial Qualifications Commission, JQC, at line 6.5.1, we've increased funds for previous contracts for investigations at $40,000. Juvenile Courts, line 7.1.1, we had a reduction in funds for savings for a vacant position. That is at $19,730. At the grants for juvenile grants to counties for juvenile courts, we had a reduction there of reducing funds to reflect actual grants at $7,888. Prosecuting attorneys, section 8. At 8.2.2, we reduced funds to reflect the savings of vacant positions to the amount of $1.441448 million. Also eliminated funds for an assistant district attorney to the Middle Circuit at $99,862. We did increase funds for an assistant district attorney position in juvenile courts effective April 1st, 2020 at $24,966. Section 9, Superior Courts. We reflected a change here at 9.3.2. There was an increased funds for replacement of one judgeship in Griffin Circuit. We found the funds were available and no longer necessary, so we removed that and reducing it down to 0. Also reducing funds at 9.3.3, reducing funds to reflect savings from vacant positions, $606,466. Supreme Court, adjustments there reflected the statewide changes there from the Department of Administrative Services at line 10.1.1. Community Development, section 18, Community Supervision, section 18, no changes made to the governor's recommendation. Department of Corrections, section 19, we'll go down to line 19.5.5. We had a reduction of funds due to delayed implementation of the electronic health records. This is a $3.9 million change there. And then also reducing FY 2018 funds for also the electronic health records project that's been encumbered but not used for the last 2 years. So we've reduced that by half at $8.778894 million. Also, the Department of Corrections at line 19.8.16, there was a request to replace funds here to increase inmate commissary pricing. The governor's recommendation was 2 cents. We have recommended that be brought up an additional 3 cents beginning April 1st, 2020 for reduction in house funds of $2.595070 million. Those are all the changes to the Department of Corrections. Department of Defense, there were no changes to the governor's recommendation. Section 27, the Office of Governor, dealing with Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency. Section 27.5, there was no changes made to that recommendation from the governor. Section 30, GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation. There are several changes to note. At line 30.1.3, there was a true up for a vacancy to realize as opposed to the 7-month cut, just the residual cut from the for the year of 107,864. At line 30.2.3, there was a reduction of funds and truing up those funds as well to $111,602. At line 30.3.2 in forensic science services, we made an adjustment for a requirement to rehire the 3 scientists vacants, the 3 scientists and 2 vacancy lab technicians rehire at April 1st, 2020. There is a capture of funds there with the amount of $454,043. Also at line 30.3.3, we asked that the funds be provided for a full year of maintenance and operations expenses for the new coastal lab, the medical examiner's office at Pooler at $550,351. Also, in the Regional Investigative Services, there's been a slight adjustment for 1 forensic scientist. There were 12 sworn positions, 4 non-sworn positions. This is line 30.4.2. The House recommends reducing the funds by freezing the 12 vacant sworn positions, the 3 non-sworn positions, but restoring a forensic auditor position as of April 1st, 2020, and capturing the delays in hiring. This is for a change in the amount of $1.64625 million. Lastly, at line 30.4.3, there was an adjustment, true up for the hiring of the 3 special agents and 2 criminal intelligence analysts for the GBI Gang Task Force at the amount of $819,810. Moving on to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council at section 30.5. There was a true up there for vacant position at line 30.5.1 at $14,980. There's also a reduction in the amount of cuts the government recommended to the juvenile justice incentive grants for local governments. The House recommended a cut of just 4% rather than the governor's proposed cut, and that reduced the overall cut down to $328,280. At lines 30.5.5, these were awards, supplemental state grants to award for local accountability courts. The subcommittee is recommending no to that cut, restoring back the full amount of money. Also at line 30.5.6, this was a reduction in funds for technical assistance to courts provided by the Department of Behavioral Health and Development of Disabilities. We had said no to this cut that will restore the full amount back of $300,000. Juvenile Justice, Department of Juvenile Justice at section 31. There are some true ups at line 31.1.5 to reflect the actual billing for youth competency beds, which we do this every year to double check how many beds have been utilized. That's an amount of, that was a cut of $322,201. Also, CSEC opened, this is the Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children CSEC Victims Facility. That opened in February 2020, so we trued up that amount of money that had not been spent on the operation of that. And that was a reduction of $234,924. Department of Law, Section 33. We have a few changes here. At line 33.1.3, we had a true-up of vacancy positions, but also asked that there be a hire back of 2 critical attorneys for elections, positions of education, elections, and local government, effective April 1st. This would be a change from the $1.3 million to a House reduction of only $673,194. In addition, we also increased funds we had a hiring delay, reduction at line 33.1.4. That was a true up there of the human trafficking unit of $87,159. And then we also had an increased funds for anticipated litigation of $2.5 million. Pardons and paroles, we have a few true ups here in this budget. Section 35. There is a true-up of amounts at line 35.1.1, reducing funds by limiting 2 vacant positions. The true-up amount is $217,498. And then also we had a change at a true-up at line 35.2.5, reducing funds, limiting 1 board confidential assistant position, and that was just a true-up of the numbers at 103.99.1. In addition, we had one more true-up at 35.2.6, reduction in funds for 2 positions to reflect the restructuring, and this was a change of $137,649. Public defenders, Section 37. We made significant changes in this area of the budget. There was a request for reduction of funds at line 37.1.3, delaying 3 hiring positions until January 1st. The true-up of that number regarding the JCATS administrator and chief legal officer and an AP analyst, that was going to be, the true-up is now $154,775. We also had a true-up at reducing funds, eliminating 1 vacant secretarial position at $49,211. The House has said no to the reduction of funds for the training expenses, so that will add $195,465 back to the budget, as well as saying no to the reduction in purchase cards of just $1,949. In addition, there was also a request to moving on down to the line of the public defenders themselves. At the line of 37.2.3, the House has said no to reducing the funds for freezing vacant positions, and that would add back in $1.196,663 back into the budget, as well as a reduction in funds. We said no to the contract rates, which add back in $360,000. Public Safety Department, a few changes here. At field offices and services at line 39.4.3, there was a request, the governor requested reducing funds for vacant positions. We increased that reduction slightly to account for the 30 troopers that had been terminated due to a cheating scandal, and that number now will be $5,413,558. Also, a reduction to reflect the trooper school attrition, which is usually dropping from 50 to 30 graduation rates in the last 3 schools, and that's a 2.14780 reduction. Also in public safety, under the Georgia Firefighter Standards and Training Council at 39.7, here we have an a true up actually of the investigator's position. Is that one position that was supposed to be, it should be hired of April 1st, 2020 for a dual investigator and grant specialist position, $71,250. And then also at line 39.7.4, we provided one-time funds to replace 2 high-mileage vehicles at $48,000. Georgia Peace Officers Standards and Training Council at line 39.8.3. There was a reduction of funds by freezing 1 vacant position. We've trued that number up to $87,385. There's also a request to, a recommendation to reduce funds for the contracts of the Georgia Sheriff's Associations and the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. The House has said no to that recommendation. That will put back in $61,622. Office of Highway Safety, a change there at section 39.10.3. There was a reduction in the scholarships for the Georgia Drivers Education Commission. These are Joshua Law funds. We have said no. This will meet just the 4% cut. We've said no to that, adding $141,812 back in the budget. And then there was a reduction of funds by freezing 2 vacant positions, and we've said to use vacancy instead. We're going to add back in $115,615 for that program. I'm sorry, that would be the reduction in the cut there. So that is the summation of the proposed amended fiscal year 2020 budget. I put it before the committee for a vote, for a motion.
I move.
A motion and a second. All those in favor of recommending this subcommittee report to the full committee, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you for your time.
Good job.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
That was a good job.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm going to call the Health Subcommittee of Appropriations meeting to order, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And Mr. Chairman, as we get started, I just want to say a big thank you to the committee for the hours that they have put in, and a special shout out to our House Budget Office, Martha and Christine and the staff, and a special shout out to a real trooper that's been here with us, Ms. Tara, during all this, and we couldn't have done this without her. And then I think most of you have met Scott, who's over here. He's going to be filling in a few days while Tara's taking a little time off. So we just want to say thank you to all of you folks, and we certainly couldn't have done this without you. Now, having said that, we're going to run through the budget, and I'm only going to highlight the changes in the amended budget. So we'll move along and get started. Under 17.4, Healthcare Assessment Improvements, 17.4.2, we said no to that cut and restored that full funding there for the Rural Health System Innovation Center. The Georgia Board of Healthcare Workforce, Graduate Medical Education, 17.12.1, that is a language change only to more accurately reflect the unutilized funds there. At Mercer School of Medicine, 17.13.1, we're saying no to that cut, and that fully restores that proposed cut there to their operating grant. 17.14, dealing with Morehouse School of Medicine grant, we're saying no to the reduction of that operating grant and fully restore that funding of that item as well. Georgia Board of Rural Health, this is Physicians for Rural Areas, 17.15.1. We're reducing that cut by half to this is for the advanced nurse practitioners for the loan repayment program and the physicians and so forth, so we're cutting that by half. 17.15.2, we're reducing that cut by some amount there to really just reflect the utilized funds and more accurately reflect what's going on there. 17.16.1, this is your undergraduate medical education program. We're saying no to that cut and restore that 4% cut, and this is the capitation for our medical schools across the state. Under public health, 38.1.3, been a lot of conversation about the sickle cell cut. We are reducing that cut from $265,000 down to $115,000, restoring $150,000 there in that. 38.1.6, this is a language change only. The cut still remains in effect, but it's a language change to more accurately reflect what's going on. Department Administration, 38.3.3. This is really a budget and bookkeeping entry. When we get to 38.12.3, you'll see where these two items tie together to more accurately reflect that in the budget. Under epidemiology, 38.5.3, to the reduced funds for the Georgia Poison Center, we're saying no to that cut there. Adding another line, 38.5.4, which there is a reduction of $40,000. This is for a contract that is not going to be used, and that more accurately reflects what's really going on there. 38.12, this is your public health formula grants to counties. 38.12.2, this was a reduction to the county boards of health. We were able to restore $2.6 million in that, and that cut was 6.3, now it's 3.7. 38.12.3, this refers back to the 38.3.3 that I mentioned a moment ago, just to bring that in compliance in the budget here. Under the Trauma Care Network Commission, 38.15.2, we have increased that number from $5 million to $7 million to accurately reflect the true amount of money that comes in from the super speeder collections. And that is all of the changes that we have in the amended budget. We'll entertain a motion from the committee, please. Have a motion to move. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Good morning. Good morning. It is quite appropriate that we convene the Human Resources Subcommittee this morning and that we sort of fall last on the agenda, actually, because in reality, this heartfelt committee does collect wonderful gifts from, I would say, everyone else throughout the budget. I want to start, first of all, by thanking Chairman England and our House budget team that works together so closely, Martha and Christine, certainly our own Michael Polachek that's here with us this morning to my left. You know, we dealt with the hard realities of the possibilities of trimmings that are necessary at this time in Georgia's life, but we were able to take the recommendations of the governor, find a few more savings, find a few increases and gifts, as I said, from other parts of the budget, a few delayed start dates, and we're able to make some improvements. So I'm looking forward to sharing those with you because it's a very, very good day, I think, for this part of the budget. First of all, we'll start with 15.1.2 under Adult Addictive Diseases, to work to increase the prior year funding levels of our residential treatment and addictive diseases. This will increase the capacity of our beds by 22, restoring $761,000. The next is 15.2.2 under Adult Developmental Disabilities Services to reflect projected expenditures and restore $500,000 to the Bobby Dodd Institute. This was the amount they requested to help them to deliver the services and help people to be employed. It will serve the current caseload and wait list of $400 and not lay off any staff. Next is 15.4.5. This will provide funds for one fiscal quarter of our provider support and training to develop the state behavioral health workforce. This is especially impactful in rural Georgia. 15.4.6 to increase funds to maintain the statewide crisis bed infrastructure and capacity. This will help so many people in our crisis units across the state. There are 21, and to maintain the 95 beds and serve the capacity of approximately 4,953 individuals every day of the year, 7 days a week is the average stay. Next is 15.4.7 to increase funds for behavioral core services. This is so very important. This is that first place where we meet people in crisis and help them. In fiscal year 19, 109,316 people were served through this. So this will help restore that, increase our capacity, and the initial access in the CSBs. Next, under Child and Adolescent Developmental Disabilities, under 15.6.2. This will help with the Marcus Autism Center to return and restore $750,000 to this very important program. Without it, 20 fewer children and 12 to 17 personnel would have lost their jobs. This is a very important, impactful return. Next is 15.11.2. This will reflect savings that were found. This is going to be about reducing one-time funds. It is not a cut, but a one-time look at the curriculum development that is produced through our technical colleges. It will help. It will not have any impact on the program and service delivery at this point in time. Next is 15.12.1. This will return the money of $14,000 for the Agricultural Careers Summer Camp for Youth with Disabilities at Emmanuel College in Franklin Springs. Next, under our Human Services Department, 28.3.2. The Children's Trust Fund is made up of money from fees collected in marriage and divorce and through our courts. This will recognize that fund and help us begin to track it. It was first put in place to help with child abuse prevention. And as a committee, we think it's very important not only to recognize, but to begin to find the ways we can maximize this money. Next is 28.4.3. This will be additional savings to reflect actual vacancies that exist based off of 3-year trends. It represents 72 vacancies. Next, at 28.5.8. This is a collaborative work, the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children, MAC. It will restore $500,000 to the work that they do, our statewide service providers for wraparound foster care for children. It is so important. During this time that has occurred since the fall with cuts, they have particularly felt this impact. They were not able to serve 200 students during the middle of the semester, and it's very important to this committee to try to restore those funds. Next is 28.5.10, point 11. This will look at the Family First project management team and reflect actual start dates. So it involves a delay. There will be savings from that. And it will be related to the drastic changes of welfare that we're going through to commit and to meet the demands of Family First. 28.5.12 is also a delayed start to produce savings for quality assurance monitors. 28.5.13 will also reflect a delayed implementation of a pilot program. This is a temporary delay. We've added language to reflect the start date as actually July 1, 2020. Next is 28.7.5. Georgia Memory Net to reflect actual projected expenditures to restore the work of the 5 memory clinics throughout our state. It is so very important to embrace the challenges of Alzheimer's and to find our ways to continue to address and track the data of this work. Next, under 28.10.4, this is simply marketing. It is not a cut. It is recognizing what the agency has confirmed that they will not be able to spend by the end of this year. Another important expenditure that goes throughout our entire state and each and every county is 28.19.1, Family Connection. That private partnership of public funds as well to reflect individual priorities that are different in each and every county in our state. It will return them to the funding before the recession, takes them back to the 2008 level. So we will restore that and make sure that we maximize the spending, because with each dollar that we invest there, 4.10 comes from other sources. During this time, they've had great challenges, particularly in the metro area, to meet the needs. There are no changes in Voc Rehab and also none in Veteran Services. So at this point in time, that is some additional work that I think the committee, who I want to thank very much for your commitment and your heartfelt understanding of our responsibility to help some of Georgia's most vulnerable and fragile people. Are there any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to pass.
We have a motion to do pass. Second. And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any others by like sign? Thank you. The motion carries, and we are adjourned.
You did good.
Good morning, everybody. Sound like everybody's had plenty of coffee and that you're all ready to go. We've got a little business in front of us this morning, and I'm going to take the chairman's prerogative and do something a little bit different. Normally, I call on somebody from the committee to do our invocation, but I'm going to call on someone that used to be on the committee before he left the house to go on to bigger and better pursuits. But a gentleman that, when I came into this role 10 years ago, told me that every time that I was to present the budget, he was going to be praying for me. And so I want to ask Jay Neal, if he would, to give our invocation this morning for our meeting.
Let's pray. Our Father, we thank you today as we bow our hearts before you. You are great and greatly to be praised. We come before you with so much to be thankful for. We thank you as the creator and sustainer of life. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be able to be here and to get here safely on a rainy morning. We thank you, Lord, for the leadership that this state has, such great leadership from the executive, from the legislative, to the judicial branches, such amazing men and women that are leading this state, and we're so thankful for that. We thank you for Chairman England and the opportunity to be able to be a prayer partner and to lift him up, and numerous times having been able to pray for him in the office just before he steps up, but Lord, to be able to lift him up on a regular basis. And we're so thankful for the leadership that he has exhibited. God, we pray that you would help the members of this committee to live out the motto of this great state. And throughout this process, I know that they've been exhibiting and will continue to exhibit wisdom and justice and moderation. And that as this process continues from each branch, Lord, that we would continue to see a collaborative agreement or effort to provide the best opportunities and the greatest priorities that will have an impact on this state and the citizens of this state from this day going forward. And Lord, we'll praise you for the process and for the results. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen. Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much. At this point, I'll turn the chair over to our Vice Chairman, Representative Perkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It has been a privilege. It has been an honor to see the amount and detail of work that has gone forth in this budget by the chairman, by the subcommittee chairs, the sober-minded look that each one of you has placed on this budget. And I do thank you, and I recognize our chairman, Chairman England, to present HB 792.
Good morning. Thank you. I would like to echo the comments of our Vice Chairman. Thank you to all of our subcommittee chairs, those of you on our committee that have been so diligent to be here for the meetings last week and prior to that, to the members of the House that are not necessarily members of the Appropriations Committee, but for your attentiveness and being here and listening to many of the meetings and listening to the testimony and being involved in the process. But certainly want to thank our staff, Martha and Christine of the House Budget and Research Office, and all of those individuals that spend so many hours looking at spreadsheets and numbers and listening to information and trying to decipher through things so that we can make the best decisions that we can make. I'd also like to thank our governor and Office of Planning and Budget for the information that they came forward with last week. I appreciate the openness and the willingness to work with us. And as we start off, we've got a lot of things to look at here, but let me get one housekeeping item first. The budget bills will go on the desks this morning, and it will be posted online after they go on the desk and after the committee report is received by the clerk's office. So just get that little bit of housekeeping information out on the front end here. As we look at this budget, the underlying theme here has been budget reductions. And I have been in agreement from day one with Governor Kemp's idea to lower the revenue estimate as we've seen the economic conditions that face us today. The economy is still incredibly strong. Employment is incredibly strong. Wage growth is incredibly strong. But I do think that we're seeing play out kind of the hangover effect from Hurricane Michael in October of 2018. We took quite a devastating blow from that storm, one in which we have nothing to compare it back to. No other state has anything to really compare it back to, because believe me, we've been looking at other states to see if there's something that we can try to model from, but we've not been able to find anything where a state took a hit in its agricultural sector the way that Georgia did. And in a loss of farm gate value of probably somewhere close to $2 billion in that one particular year in crops that just disappeared overnight. And then what that ripple effect is throughout the economy. And it's certainly something I think that we're seeing and saw and are seeing in our revenue numbers. But as we continue to go forward, we're starting to see things kind of pick back up. We had a decent crop year last year, thankfully. Many of the actions this General Assembly took did allow many of our producers that may not have been able to plant a crop last year to plant a crop, and hopefully that will carry forward into this year as well. So with that, we will start into the budget. Section 1, Georgia Senate, no changes at this point. Section 2, the Georgia House, you will see that we will be participating in the 4% reductions there. Joint offices of the General Assembly in Section 3, you'll see statewide change there for the Department of Administrative Services on the self-insured plan. You'll see that throughout the document. You'll see where we've had to enter it in our divisions and in the judiciary, and then it's spread throughout several other places as well. And then one addition there for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators that will be meeting in Georgia this year, very similar to what we've done in the past for NCSL and Southern Legislative Conference as well. Moving on to the Department of Audits and Accounts in Section 4. At 4.5.1, you'll see a slight reduction for a vacancy. We're just capturing those changes as well. So let me stop right here, hit the pause button again for just a second, and note that many of the changes you'll see several places where we did go in and take some additional cuts throughout agencies. Understand that by the time this budget makes it through our process, through the Senate, and then through the conference committee process, and then eventually to the governor, that somewhere around or about April 1st will actually be kind of the implementation date. So that throws many of these agencies where we've made restorations only able to actually start those changes beginning April 1st. So many of the cuts that we've gone in and replaced where things had been paused or were not implemented last year, but we feel very strongly that they should be implemented. We're just doing a quarter of a year of funding, so we've got 3 months worth of funding beginning April 1st to kick those off. So that's what you're going to see throughout the document. Section 5, the Court of Appeals. Chairman Welch, Courtney, and Brian have done an outstanding job on going through the public safety divisions and looking at everything in that realm. And what you'll see under Court of Appeals are just some true-ups there under the statewide business court. Of course, that is stood up as of January the 1st. It is attached administratively to the Court of Appeals. So we're actually doing what is necessary there to put it in business as required by the constitutional vote a couple of years ago. Judicial Council, again, under that agency, you'll see some adjustments and true-ups for actual expenditures. And then under the 6.4.2, grants for civil legal services, you'll see a slight reduction there, but it does still leave $475,000 in the base, and we'll get them through the rest of the year. Juvenile courts, Section 7, again, true-ups. Section 8, prosecuting attorneys. The DAs, as Chairman Welch has mentioned on a couple of occasions, did come to the table and offered up several cuts in order to help us backfill some of the reductions that were taken under the public defenders. So you'll see some add-backs under public defenders a little bit later, but our hat is off to our friends in the DAs for helping come to the table to help make some of those restorations, but you'll see some true-ups there as well. Again, under Section 9, Superior Courts, again, a capturing of some savings there for a judgeship that has not been appointed yet in the Griffin Circuit, but then some savings from vacant positions at 9.3.3. Supreme Court, the only change there deals with the statewide change with DOAS. State Office of Accounting, SAO, the only change there is going to be down under the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission, just a replacement of some funds there so they can continue on their job of making sure that everyone is following the law and doing what they're supposed to do. Section 12, Department of Administrative Services, no changes. Section 13, under the Department of Agriculture, Chairlady Houston and her committee were very concerned, rightfully so, about some of the things that Commissioner Black had told us, what some of the reductions would actually mean to his department. And so at 13.2.3, you will see where they have added back 5 food safety inspectors and 2 animal industry inspectors effective on April the 1st. 13.2.5, the funds to establish the Georgia Hemp Program per House Bill 213 in last year's session. Under admin, they're at 13.3.3, just a capture of some savings that deal with some hiring delays. Then under marketing and promotion, a reduction in the cut at 13.4.2, adding back the 1 business support analyst and 1 international trade representative effective April 1st, and then at 13.4.3, reducing the cut there under the marketing program to restore marketing materials and the Georgia Grown website development, which that contract had already gone out the door. Continuing under State Soil and Water Conservation Commission at 13.7, you'll see some minor adjustments there, just capturing some savings in a couple of areas. Section 14, banking and finance, no changes there. Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, Chairlady Dempsey and her committee spent hours and hours listening to testimony, not only from agency heads, but also from individuals that would be impacted. And in doing so, have come back in with several additions or reductions to cuts. You'll see those starting at 15.1.2. That reduction in that cut will restore the capacity of about 22 beds for residential treatment of addictive services. Then going down to 15.2.2, a reduction in the cut to the Bobby Dodd Institute, which will allow them to continue to serve a wait list of about 400 individuals there. Moving on over to 15.4.5, you'll see a restoration of part of that cut. That deals with the workforce training for these individuals going out across the state, providing support services for individuals with developmental disabilities, and it helps in that training program there. 15.4.6, an increase there for some of the crisis beds around the state, and then in 15.4.7, an increase in funding for behavioral health core services. So this will give the ability for the agency to see about 2,320 additional individuals in the remainder of the year. Moving down to child and adolescent developmental disabilities at 15.6.2. Marcus Autism Center had been lined there for a cut on their contract. We've restored that cut. That also brings in a one-to-one match on federal dollars as well. So the original $750,000 cut wound up being a $1.5 million cut to the Marcus Autism Center. Then on over at 1511.2, just a reduction there for the one-time funds for curriculum development. It has no impact on the actual services. This is just related to the program development there, which is up and running. 15.12.1, restoration of a summer camp for individuals with developmental disabilities as well. Section 16, Department of Community Affairs. Just some kind of housekeeping and house cleaning items there at 16.2.3, capturing of a vacant position. 16.3.3, upon doing the research there on the Georgia Advocacy Office, we found that there is not a duplication of services there, so that was restored. Under regional services, there had been funds put in to replace 3 vehicles. We've said no to that for the time being. Under special housing initiatives, that contract was basically spent down, so it was not a cut that was available. 16.10.3, again, another vacant position that was not currently vacant, so that had to be restored as well. Restoration of a cut at 16.12.1 to the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust. And then at 16.16.2, just the recognition under the One Georgia Authority that the One Georgia Authority will pay the assessment for the Appalachian Regional Commission assessment. Georgia has 37 counties that are serviced by the ARC, and through that program come many grants for different things. One of the most recent one, of course, is some work done with the Elbert County Hospital, with Elbert being one of the counties that qualifies. ARC was able to give them a grant that has been very helpful in them remaining open. Moving on to DCH. 17.4.2, last year the General Assembly established the Rural Health Systems Innovation Center at Mercer University. We have said no to that cut of $463,000 there. Then over into our Georgia Board of Healthcare Workforce. We have made a priority in this body, not only in the House but in the Senate as well, in the General Assembly, to increase our slots for residencies, to increase the ability of our medical colleges to educate doctors across the state. So we felt at this point that it would be regressive to take cuts at 1713, 1714, and 1715 as it relates to residency slots and loan repayment programs and malpractice insurance for doctors and others serving in rural areas. Then at 1716, again, a reduction, elimination of the cut there. That was actually dollars that go to the resident students themselves. It was not part of anything else, so we replaced that cut. Department of Community Supervision, there are no changes there. Department of Corrections, Section 19. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Chairman Parrish for his work, and Tara and Scott, he's hiding somewhere back over there, for their hard work on the stuff in healthcare as well. Department of Corrections, Section 19, if you'll look at 19.5.5 and 19.5.6, DOC had come to us a couple of years ago wanting to move over to electronic health records. However, they have not made that transition yet. So we were able to capture quite a bit of savings there on some money that they had encumbered but have not been using. So we've taken those savings there. Moving over to 19.8.16, just increasing the per item cost by 5 cents in the commissaries at the Department of Corrections. Even with that increase, the retail price there is still more than 30%, more than 30% below what the outside market is. Department of Defense, no changes. Section 21, Driver Services. You'll see one transfer at 21.1.5 from 21.2.7 of some vehicles, just moving them out of license issuance up into Department Admin to allow for flexibility of their usage. And then at 21.2.3, a reduction in the cut there to allow for some security cameras to be placed in the driver services centers around the state. Under decal, Section 22, restoration of a cut that Family Connection would have taken. We've just changed that around a little bit in the document, but allows decal to use some existing funds to continue to partner with Family Connection as I think Chair Lady Dempsey stated a little bit ago, for every dollar that we spend in state funds there, they're able to match it with about $4.10 in funds from the local community or other contributors around the state as well. Section 23, Economic Development, capturing of a vacant position at 23.1.3, a restoration of some of the marketing funds at 23.5.2. You know, a lot of times as we're in business, we understand that as we have to go in and make cuts, one of the things that often is the easiest to cut is marketing and promotion and advertising. But time after time, studies have shown us that that's one of the things that you shouldn't cut when times are not that good or are looking a little questionable. As I said a while ago, we're not in bad times, we're not in a questionable time, but it's still not a time to be cutting our marketing efforts under global commerce. Under 23.9, tourism, same goes for there, restoration of some of the cut on some of the trade show and sponsorship opportunities, but also capturing savings from a vacant position at 23.9.4. Department of Education, Chairman Dickey and his team have done a great job under DOE, and at 24.1.3, you'll see a small add of 177,600. We have a safety issue with some of the bunk beds at the FFA, FCCLA camps around the state, so they're needing to make some modifications and buy some new bunk beds there to make sure that the kids that are going there are safe as they're camping. Going on to 24.13.2, capturing of savings again for a vacant position under nutrition at 24.14.2, the restoration of some travel funds. Under nutrition, of course, DOE and the Department of Ag have been partnering very successfully in the farm to table or farm to school work, and so we don't want to do anything that inhibits that, as we understand that if it's coming straight from the farm to the table there in the school, it is of a better quality for our children as they enjoy their dining experiences at school. Under 24.19 QBE, basically the changes that you see there are true ups. There's quite a bit of money moving back and forth, but again, those are true ups in the formula. As this document moves along, we'll continue to get better information, so you may see some additional changes there when it comes back from the Senate. At 24.20.2, a partial restoration of some of the cuts to RESAs. State charter school, going in and looking at some personnel restructuring there and taking a small cut. Under state schools at 24.23.2, as I mentioned before, we are basically, as the General Assembly, kind of the Board of Education for the state schools for the blind and deaf. And so we felt that it was needed that they not participate in the cuts, because those cuts there are related to direct instruction. Section 25 ERS, no changes. Section 26 Forestry Commission. Some adjustments and true-ups on some vacant positions, but also some restoration of funds at 26.2.3 under forestry management. Those guys and gals are in trucks riding around the state helping landowners and forest landowners either recover from the storm, as we had several million acres of timber destroyed, but also as it comes to management practices to prevent wildfires. So we felt that it was important that they still have travel money there. And then under forest protection at 26.3, you'll see some restoration there of equipment purchases, which is safety equipment, and then some building maintenance needs that are also needed there. Office of the Governor, Section 27, and talking with Director Farr and his team, realized that a large portion of what they were advocating to add there to the emergency fund deals with anticipated litigation. As you know, we're set here very soon to go back before the Supreme Court as it relates to the water wars. So we want to make sure that our Attorney General has in his shop what is needed for that litigation. So what we've done there is take $2.5 million and move it over to the Department of Law, which you will see in just a minute. Moving on to DHS, Section 28. 28.3.2, just the recognition of where some of the Children's Trust Fund dollars are being used, an acknowledgement there in the budget. 28.4.3, looking at the vacancies and just truing that number up there under Child Support Services. Then at 28.5.8, restoration of about $500,000 there for the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children, which those individuals work with students that are in school and trying to help them make sure that they stay in school. Then moving on to 28.5.11, just reducing funds for the actual start date there at 28.5.12 and 28.5.13, again, recognitions of delay in start dates there. 28.7.5, a restoration of $164,800 to the Georgia Memory Net program, which is a partnership with Emory University with 5 sites around the state for early diagnosis and treatment of dementia and Alzheimer's related issues. Elder Support Services, a slight reduction in marketing funds there at 28.10.4, just because those funds will not be spent by the end of the year. End of the fiscal year. Again at 28.19.1, restoration of the cut there to Family Connection. We'd finally gotten those agencies back to the 2008 spending or 2008 funding levels, and so what we've done is just said no to that suggested reduction. Moving on to insurance at section 29. Under fire safety, capturing of some savings there for some individuals that will be starting here shortly. So we were able to take those reductions, take those savings now. Under GBI at 30.1.3, just a true up there, a true up again at 30.2.3. Then at 30.3.2, just saying that we will hire those individuals for the last quarter. And again, at 30.3.3, those dollars go into hiring the scientists needed for the lab there in Pooler, Georgia as well. Under Regional Investigative Services at 30.4.2, restoring a forensics auditor position starting April 1st is the change there. And then a true up on what the actual cost will be at 30.4.5 for the gang task force. Continuing under GBI as an attached agency, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. Again, truing up at 30.5.3, actually pulling the cut that had been suggested at 5% back to a 4%. A full restoration of the dollars going to the accountability courts at 30.5.5. These were already an ongoing effort, so to take the funding out would have meant that individuals would have not had that option, and those individuals would have wound up certainly in a more a lesser cost-effective method of dealing with what they've done. At 30.5.6, just a restoration of those positions as well on the technical assistant side. Under DJJ at section 31, you'll see a capture of some savings of true-ups at 31.1.5 and 31.1.6. Then section 32, Department of Labor, no changes. Section 33, Department of Law. You'll see a reduction in the cut at 33.1.3 to allow them to staff back up for several things that are coming, including elections, lawsuits. Then a reduction for hiring delay at 33.1.4 on the human trafficking unit. And then at 33.1.5, you'll see the $2.5 million from the Governor's Emergency Fund moved over to there to deal with water wars and any other litigation that may be coming. Department of Natural Resources, section 34. Under 34.7.3, saying no to the cut there as it relates to operating expenses and equipment purchases and travel for the law enforcement division. We don't have an option. When they're called, they have to respond, and so we felt like that it was important to continue to allow them to respond as needed. Under Parks and Recreations and Historical Sites, Chairman Watson and his committee recognize that our state parks are certainly a money generator, a money maker for the state of Georgia, and that when our citizens go there, they expect to have a first-class experience, and they expect to pay for a first-class experience. So in reducing maintenance and equipment needs, it just seems a little counterproductive. So you see restorations there. And also at 34.8.8, some one-time funds for the Sam Railroad that runs out of Cordele, state-owned, again, state park on rails basically, but quite a bit of deferred maintenance that's needing some attention at this point there. Under Wildlife Resources, WRD, 34.10.3, saying no to the reduction in operating expenses, and at 34.10.4, saying no to the reduction in repairs and maintenance. Again, those help contribute to the state's bottom line in a positive way, and so it would seem regressive to pull back from those. Under Pardons and Parole, Section 35, you'll see some adjustments there that, again, are true-ups at 35.1.1, 35.2.5, and 35.2.6. State Property, Section 36, no changes. Public Defender Council, Section 37. You'll see a few changes and true-ups there. 37.1.3, just recognizing the actual start date of 3 positions and replacing some funds there. A true-up of a cut at 37.1.4. And then saying no to the reduction of training for those individuals at 37.1.5. 12 hours of continuing legal education is required by those individuals, and to say that they can't train would take us backwards a little bit there as well. At 37.2.3 under Public Defenders, you'll see the restoration of a $1.2 million proposed cut there. And then at 37.2.4, the restoration of $360,000 for the contract attorneys that do public defender work around the state. Moving on to Public Health, Section 38. Partial restoration at 38.1.3 for the Sickle Cell Foundation. This allows for the mobile testing unit to continue its travels around the state and allows for the continued tracking of many individuals suffering from this horrible disease. At 38.3.3, you'll see an adjustment there that ties to 38.12.3 related to the Fulton County Department of Public Health, just a truing up of where those numbers actually should go. Under epidemiology at 38.5.3, we've said no to the cut to the Georgia Poison Control Center. As you know, we have one center in this state that serves the whole state, and from what I've told, it actually serves outside our state as well. But in the time that it's called, it doesn't matter where the individual is. They've potentially ingested, or a family member's ingested something, and they need to know what the answer is at that point. So we don't want to do anything to hinder that. At 38.5.4, though, there is a contract there that we're taking the cut on. 38.12, you'll see a true up at 38.12.2, just going to a 3% cut instead of a 5% cut there. And then you'll see that where the money for Fulton County transfers out at 38.12.3. On the restoration at the County Boards of Health, that is a restoration of about $2.6 million total. 38.15, you'll see an increase there, just a recognition of what the super speeder fines and collections are, just a full recognition of the total dollars at a little over $7 million. Public safety, 39.4, under field offices and services, you'll see a couple of true-ups there and the recognition of unfortunately, where 30 troopers had to be let go the other day because of a testing scandal. capturing that savings, but also capturing a savings as it relates to the attrition through the trooper schools as they go through the year. Under firefighters at 39.7, an add back at 39.7.2 to true that one up, and then 39.7.4, replacing 2 high mileage vehicles. Actually, both those vehicles I think are north of 180,000 miles and have been known to break down with some regularity as those individuals travel the state. 39.8.3, again a true up as it relates to a frozen position, but also at 39.8.4, restoring the contracts with the Georgia Sheriff's Association and the Association of Police Chiefs for training there. We've also got an issue to address in the 21 budget as it relates to that new sheriff's training and some other things as well. At Office of Highway Safety, 39.10, you'll see a restoration there, and then a corresponding cut, but changing over from using Joshua's Law funds to allow those scholarships to continue to go out to individuals, and then capturing a vacancy there as it relates to the Office of Highway Safety. Under Public Service Commission, Section 40, this group of individuals has quite a lot on their plate as it deals with regulating utility rates across the state, but also as we get ready for Vogel units 3 and 4 to come online. And so at this point, we felt it's very important to make sure that they have the staffing and the training that they need and access to information through their national association to continue out what they're doing there. Under Section 41, Regents, under Ag Experiment and Cooperative Extension, you'll see quite a few changes there, and I'll try to simplify that for you. When the initial cuts were proposed in the original budget document, they had gone in and looked at total funds, including federal funds. And of course, we can't cut federal funds. So what the College of Ag and Environmental Sciences had proposed was a 4% cut on state funds. So what we've done is go back to their 4% cut plan that they had actually submitted back in the fall. You'll also see an additional addition at 41.1.7. There had been proposed a reduction for maintenance. The College of Ag, through the Experiment Station program, owns more property than the rest of Regents combined, so they've got quite a few structures and land around the state, and we've managed over the last few years to do some restorations on maintenance and operation funding for those facilities, and so we just didn't feel like at this point we should pull back on that as well. Under Forestry Cooperative Extension and Forestry Research, again, going back to a 4% cut there. Under Georgia Archives, lessening a cut there and just saying reduce landscaping expenses but do not defer maintenance at this point on the building. 41.8.2, you'll see a slight adjustment under the Georgia Cyber and Innovation Training Center, a true up there. Under Marine at 41.12, restoration back to the 4% reduction submitted by the college or by the university. Then at 41.13.1, again, kind of going back to the theme of trying to continue to put doctors out and across the state. The cut there we have restored because that was actually money that goes directly to the residents that are out there doing their training. So it was not to the teaching program, it was actually to the students themselves. So we have restored that cut. And then under public libraries at 41.14.5, restoring the proposed 17.5-cent cut on the per capita spending for materials. Moving on to public service and special funding initiatives under 41.15, restoration of the Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center. That group goes out and is vital in rural Georgia in helping train science and math teachers as it relates to STEM. We felt that their work was important. 41.15.6, just a true up on personal services there related to the Film Academy. Skidaway, lessen the cut there. Again, we've tried very hard over the last several years on these experiment stations and those methods of outreach across the state, and felt that we needed to make that restoration. And then at 41.19 at the Vet Med experiment station, the same goes there. Under the Georgia Public Telecommunications Commission at 41.23, lessening the cut at operating expenses at 41.23.3. As Chairman Knight had mentioned a while ago, they've had at their facility a boiler that has gone out of commission, and that just allows them to be able to handle the replacement of that boiler. Moving on to Section 42, Department of Revenue. Partial restoration of some contract funds at 42.8.6. These are the contractors that we have that go out around the state and help collect some of the things, some of those taxes due to the state of Georgia. For every dollar we spend on commission, those entities bring back an average of $12.90 to the state. So it's, again, kind of like the state parks. It's one of those things that helps us generate revenue, and we just felt like we didn't need to do anything to cut that at this point. Secretary of State, moving down Section 43 at 43.8, Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission, just a true-up of the startup funds, a slight addition there of a little over $44,000 to get that entity stood up and going to help these families around the state that are suffering and have found that that is a treatment that works well for their family members. Section 44, Student Finance Commission, there are no changes there. Teacher retirement, Section 45, no changes there. Technical College System of Georgia, Section 46, got one change. And hold on a second, I'll get to it. It's at the very end. Under Technical Education, 46.6. Just a small reduction there for the actual startup dates of some of the aviation tech instructors that we had put into the budget last year. Section 47, Department of Transportation. Chair Lady Taylor, just kind of getting her feet wet as she's new to our team, and we're glad to have her. Making some one slight adjustments there under intermodal at 47.6.1. The Middle Georgia Regional Airport is in dire need of a runway extension in order to complete their commitment on some economic development projects that are hot and headed their way. One of those includes an aircraft paint facility. The other includes some contract work with Robins Air Force Base. Robins is out of space, and so they're seeking to contract out at other facilities. So there's no new funds. It's just delegating what some of those funds in intermodal will be going toward. Department of Veterans Services, Section 48, no changes there. Workers' Comp, Section 49, no changes there. And the last change I will mention is in Section 50. There's one sheet there that relates to the GO bonds. And you'll see there just the recognition of a bond, a couple of bonds that we put in a few years ago to build a new youth detention center in Gwinnett County. However, after about 2 years of searching for property, they've not been able to find a suitable location for that facility. So the Department of Juvenile Justice has asked for a redirection of those funds for some other critical need projects. So we are recognizing that shift to those projects here in the budget document because it does amount to about $12 million. We felt that a redirect of that size should deserve recognition and scrutiny and transparency by the General Assembly. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my comments. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was an outstanding job. I will entertain any questions. I have one up front with Chairman Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes,
I wanted to ask you about in Department of Corrections, line item 19.8.16, I think it is. I know you explained this, and I'm sure that the subcommittee went into it in great detail. I'm just trying to, I think I've kind of figured it out. But on that, we're taking away another $1 million, I think it is. And is that because that the the price increase for the commissary is going up another 3 cents on April 1st? Is that
Yes,
how?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, that's instead of a percentage, that's just 3
It's
cents.
per item, 3 cents per item. It'd be a nickel per item total.
So that's on anything that they get.
Because what we found is everything within those commissaries are north of 30% below what you and I would go to the store and purchase anything for.
Okay.
And it is a convenience for those individuals, but at the same time, that needs to cover its cost, and it's not currently covering its cost of
Okay.
operation.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any district questions? Seeing none, I would, at this point, I would entertain a motion. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor of the passage out of the Appropriation Committee of HB 792, will you please say aye?
Aye.
Passes.
Motion carries. Mr. Chairman, you wish to go ahead and adjourn us?
Let's be done. I think Chairman Smith is going to be in the room in just a second.
Yep.